As per the title, it's time to begin our first steps into creating our roguelike. But before that, let's take some time to sort our assets into folders by creating a resources folder and a scripts folder. Then drag the Spritesheet into resources and game manager into scripts. Now open the resources folder, expand the Spritesheet, and drag the @ symbol into the hierarchy. This creates a 2D game object that we can then rename to player, before dragging it into our resources folder where it becomes a prefab. Now delete the sprite from our hierarchy and open the game manager script in our scripts folder. With our game manager open, we're going to create a start method. We will then pass in instantiate resource.load with its type being GameObject and parameter being the player string. This will make our player GameObject using the player prefab located within the resources folder. Once we click play in the Unity editor, we will then add .name equals player so we don't see clone within its name in the hierarchy. From here, we will be creating a simple turn handler by first creating two new variables, a float called time, giving it a default value of 0.1f, followed by a boolean called isPlayerTurn with a default value of true, before finally allowing our player isTurn boolean to be accessed through a getter. Next, we will create two methods, one called endTurn and the other waitForTurns. The endTurn method tells the game manager to set isPlayerTurn to false and start a coroutine called waitForTurns. The waitForTurns method, due to being of type IEnumerator, tells the game manager to wait 1/10 of a second before setting isPlayerTurn to true. With our game manager now configured, head back to Unity editor and create an input action file called controls. We're going to set generate C# class to true, followed by clicking apply. Now press edit asset. Create a control scheme called arrow keys and add keyboard and mouse to the list. You can set mouse to optional and then click save. You will follow this by creating an action map called player, rename new action to movement, set its action type to value, followed by setting its control type to vector2. From here, we're going to quickly add the interaction press and a normalized vector2 in its processes. Now expanding movement, we're going to delete its current binding and add an up, down, left, right composite. We're now going to set its individual paths to the arrow keys. Before moving on, we're going to create a new action called exit and set its binding to escape, making sure to set arrow keys to true and saving the asset. Now to use the input system that we just created, we're going to create a player script. Opening the script, with the script open, we're going to get rid of the unneeded imports, followed by adding in unityengine.inputSystem, and then remove both the start and update methods. Here we're going to add a reference to our controls input actions, and then a private boolean to represent when we hold down a movement key. Next, we're going to add the awake method to create a new controls object, followed by adding the onEnable and onDisable methods. These two methods tell the controls when they can be used and when they cannot be used. It also handles the subscriptions to and from the controls input actions. We will then proceed to add the methods called onMovement and onExit. These methods take in the context provided when the movement keys are used or the escape key. We have onTheMovement method. When the context is started, i.e. when you hold down a key to move, move key held boolean will be set to true. And when you cease holding onto the key, it will then say context.cancelled, which will then set the boolean to false. With our onExit method, unlike in the tcod tutorial, all I've put here is debug.logExit. This can be changed to application.quit when you proceed to build your roguelike. With our input actions being handled, we're going to also create two more methods that are called fixedUpdate and movePlayer. The fixedUpdate method has a condition that checks to see if isPlayerTurned in the Game Manager instance is set to true, and also checks if the movement key is being held. We'll then call movePlayer, with movePlayer just being a simple transform.position taking in our value from the vector2 in our movement action. Upon movement, it will also call endTurn in our Game Manager instance. Now head back to the Unity editor. Here we're going to go back to the resources folder. Selecting our player prefab, we're going to then add the player script by clicking Add Component, typing in player, and selecting it. From here, we're going to create a new game object, call it Game Manager, and add the Game Manager script to it. I'm going to quickly change the background color for the main camera to black. And let's press play to test out our movement. Everything seems to be in order. With that, we're done with this video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!